Hey there, I'm Tiny Tree, and here's how I made a mobile game at the age of 14. Now, to save some time, I'm going to skip 2 whole years worth of progress, which is around the second time I restarted the whole game. Now, what does almost every game have in it that it probably shouldn't? Fishing mini games. Why? I have no clue. I cannot understand why a game about guns, explosions, and liberating your country needs a fishing mini game. They're everywhere in all of these AAA titles, but have you actually ever enjoyed any of them? Like, seriously, I cannot understand how people can spend 30 minutes standing still, tapping the same button over and over again in a game where you can instead spend your time pretending to be a super cool cowboy. And even worse is that the fishing mini games are so simple that you can't even get better at it because they rely purely on RNG, which at that point, you might as well go gambling. But what if you just make a game all about fishing? You can focus on progression and getting better and making an actually complex and interesting game. Because, no one's ever done that. Or at least that's what I thought at the age of 11. Now that I let off some steam with that rant, what's my master plan to make the best fishing game, you ask? The idea is simple. Your fisherman casts his hook down, and you have to control the hook. You control the hook, which constantly moves left or right depending on which side of the screen you tap. But here's the twist. If you hit a fish on the way down, the hook starts reeling back up. The idea is that once the fisherman feels a tug, he starts reeling it in. So, I got straight into working on exactly that. Now, like I said before, this is about 2 years into development because, surprise, surprise, 11-year-olds aren't the greatest at coding. So the core code of the game was horrible. It's like if you're building a skyscraper that's nice and strong at the top, but built with rotten wood at the bottom. So I had most systems fairly built out, so it was easy to recreate most features. Now that I have this basic gameplay, let's identify and solve some issues. Firstly, it feels like there's a lack of reward for reaching the bottom. If anything, it feels like you're being cheated by the game because you can't get any more fish in that run. To solve this, I added a chest which spawns at the bottom of the level and gives the player valuable loot to reward them. Secondly, it's too easy. The current gameplay is way too easy to the point of boredom. While there are many ways to increase the difficulty, I landed on 3 combined solutions. Each biome will be home to its own set of unique hazards. For this biome, which I plan to be the tropical biome, crabs and jellyfish fit perfectly. These hazards are fairly basic mechanically, both stand still and kill the player on collision. But what makes them differ is the fact that the crab sits on the walls and the jellyfish floats anywhere in the water. I whipped up some more fish art and gave each fish species its own speed, which makes it harder to predict their movement. Finally, the last solution, currents. Currents spawn randomly throughout the level and will push the player's hook in one direction. And my final issue with the core gameplay, the looks. While adding different fish and hazards help the overall look, it's still pretty bland. I can easily fix this, however, with some coral that spawns on the walls, background fish, and bubbles, which makes it look way better. And after adding a death menu and results menu, that's the core gameplay done. You can now go fishing. Now, before you award me Game of the Year for my masterpiece, let me tell you something. There's more. I know, I'm just too good. Anyways, I wasted no time on planning out the main gameplay loop. Now, considering this is a mobile game, I went with a very basic gameplay loop. The player goes fishing and earns coins and clams. Clams are this game's version of premium currency, similar to games like Clash of Clans, which use gems. With the money the player earns, they can then go to the upgrade shop, which is a new building players can access via the new main menu. The player has 3 upgrade options. Max depth. The upgrade allows the player to go deeper. Bait. This upgrade spawns expensive fish more often. And last, but most important, the boat upgrade, which unlocks the next biome which offers more valuable fish and different hazards. Some players had issues understanding what the upgrades did. So, I added a button that explains what the upgrades do, which swaps with a progress bar, which shows the player how many more levels they have to progress. The prices for the upgrades are designed in a way that intends the player to upgrade their max depth and bait before upgrading their boat, to make sure they are prepared to explore the unknown depths of the next biome. Now, I know what I've done looks pretty effortless, which it wasn't, but all of the coding for this was easy compared to the most feared feature I made in my game, the depth meter. The concept was simple. Make a simple piece of UI that shows your depth compared to the bottom of the level. I decided to do this by making this little hook move along this line, which gives the player a rough idea on how deep they are at a glance. To give them even more information, I also would have a piece of text follow the hook that tells the player what depth they are in meters. Sounds simple, right? Heck no! This code would just not work. And when I felt like I had succeeded and had it working, 2 weeks later, it would just stop working. It got to the point where I was convinced this feature was cursed. I tried everything. At one point, I thought the depth meter was actively mocking me. This feature genuinely had me in tears multiple times. It took 13 different tries and a whole year before the depth meter decided to show some mercy and work. This feature legitimately was almost the reason I never finished this game, because I was too stubborn to try something else, or just not add it. But it's fine, I guess, because it's working now. Now, I mentioned biomes before, but at the moment, the game only has one, the Caribbean, so let me introduce the new biomes. The second biome players will find is the soggy swamps. Replacing the jellyfish and crabs are the catfish and eel. The catfish creates its own current to suck the player into their mouth and hopefully kill them. The eel is fairly simple mechanically, as it just swims around side to side and will kill the player on collision with the hook. There are also new fish for this biome because it wouldn't make much sense finding a mahi-mahi in a swamp. Polar Point has two hazards, which work so well together to take the player out. Meet the squid and icebergs. The icebergs spawn throughout the level and force players to squeeze between the small gaps, which is fairly difficult when you're also worrying about the other fish that inhabit the icy waters. Now, if that wasn't hard enough, you will also have to deal with the squid, which acts similar to the squid item in Mario Kart. When you hit the squid, it doesn't kill you, but instead covers your screen in black ink, which leads to some pretty funny and frustrating deaths. And the final biome is Sunken Depths, probably the prettiest biome of the bunch. The Sunken Depths is adorned with lots of bioluminescent lights, which makes it look pretty cool in my opinion. Now this biome is special because it offers 3 hazards: the lanternfish, king crab, and floating rocks. The lanternfish is the most mechanically interesting one of the bunch. When you hit the lanternfish, it turns off all other lights in the biome, leaving the player in complete darkness. The king crab is fairly similar to the crab, but has a shiny crown and is a bit bigger. And finally, the floating rocks, which will spawn throughout the level and force players to navigate around them. And with a quick map menu added, you can select the biome of your choice and unlock them by upgrading your boat. When I sent this version to some friends for testing, I received a few complaints about them being confused about what fish are hazards when moving up a biome. And it's also pretty anticlimactic, upgrading your boat after grinding to unlock the next biome. So let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone, with an unlocking animation. The animation firstly shows the player the title of the new biome, then the hazards, and any other bonuses that come with the biome. This change was received very well with players, but that wasn't the only issue that playtesters complained about. Almost everyone who played the game said it got boring fairly quickly because it wasn't fun just purely working towards upgrading your gear, which to be fair was true. There had been a feature suggested that was a collector's book, where players could collect every fish from each biome for a reward, which was a great idea, and it would also be perfect to help keep players entertained. So I added a museum building to the menu, where players can collect the fish in each biome for some clams. Now, when I originally sent this to playtesters, it was a disaster. Some fish would unlock the wrong fish in the museum, and others would just do nothing. But after ironing out those bugs, it was a great addition to the game. Though the UI could definitely do with an overhaul in later updates, I'm just trying to finish the game at this point. And finally, to add another goal for players to work towards, and a different use for clams, I added hats. These hats can be purchased from the Top Hat Tower, which is a new building in the menu. Every day, 3 new hats are picked to be sold, and players can use their precious clams to buy some snazzy hats. The player can then equip them by clicking on the player in the menu and then selecting their desired hats. The hats were a great feature, but I had multiple issues when trying to add more hats and updates. The issues included, but were not limited to, losing all your hats when a new hat was added, not being able to unlock the hat, and even that new hat replacing the old ones, which annoyed playtesters very much. It was an absolute mess of spaghetti code that I had to sort through and clean up before I finally got it working, but at least it was now fairly easy to add new hats whenever I wanted. And that's it. 3 years of development summed into one singular video. I'll take my Game of the Year award now, and if you want to see more about Holy Mackerel or my future projects, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on my socials, which are all linked in the description. You can play Holy Mackerel for free on Google Play and the App Store. And hey, who knows, maybe if you guys leave enough good reviews, I'll consider adding new biomes or cool features in the next big update. If this video hits, I guess 5,000 views, I'll make a video about a big update and the revenue side of things. Thanks for watching all the way through, and I'm excited to talk about the revenue side of things and where the game goes next. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.